Phil and Tyler here. Phil, what do we got today?
Motorcycle listing apps. So I like to call them like you're familiar with Turo, right? Place that's like the kind of the first peer-to-peer car sharing app. I don't know why it took so long, but just in the last few years, there's now the equivalent for motorcycles. So they're called RiderShare and Twisted Road. There's definitely more than that, but those are the two sort of really popular ones and the ones that I personally use to rent out my motorcycle on occasion. So today we're going to talk about, should you rent your bike on RiderShare or Twisted Road, any of the motorcycle sharing apps?
All right. Well, that sounds interesting. I've used Turo in the past. I've never used Twisted Road or RiderShare, but like you said, you use it to rent your personal motorcycle out. So what's your experience been?
It's been up and down. I've definitely formed a few opinions. I think to answer the question, should you list your bike on RiderShare or Twisted Road, one of those apps? I think the short answer I would give is it really depends on a few things. I think, what are you looking to get out of it, first of all? Are you looking to just make a couple bucks? Are you looking to cover your motorcycle payment? Are you looking to meet people, maybe other riders? Or are you actually looking to turn your bike into a business and make money out of it? So going into it is with, what mindset you are there is a big thing. What's the demand for your bike, I think, matters a lot. We'll talk about in a second. What is your time worth? Because that's one thing that's not calculated into this, is the time and effort that you put in. I think we should talk a little bit about the safety and the risk of it, and then also lay out some math of like what it looks like in terms of income and costs and time that you put into it.
Yeah, very interesting. So,
thank you again.
In your example,
interesting guy.
Interesting guy. Well, in your example, right? So the first question was, what are you looking to get out of it, right? So, honestly, you just have a motorcycle. We both bought the same motorcycle, in fact, the Z400 Kawasaki, because it was honestly cheap and accessible. And it's like, I want a motorcycle. Let's go buy these because it's COVID and there's nothing else to do. So you went out with this bike, you rode it, you enjoyed it, and you said, you know what? I'm just not using it enough. What can I do with it? And is that kind of what led you down your path to start using these apps, these websites?
Yeah, definitely. COVID had a big part to play with it, but mostly, it's just depressing sort of just seeing the bike, out just sitting in the garage, not being used a lot.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what brought me to, do some Google search, and I found RiderShare and Twisted Road. But for me, I fall on that boat of, what are you trying to get out of it? I was just looking to, have it make a couple bucks or at least get out of my garage. I really just didn't have any expectations. I wanted someone else to ride it. But it was important for me to be able to have it available whenever I wanted it. So really, I was just my whole plan from the beginning, and kind of how it's worked out, is that just when a request would come in, I would evaluate the weekend or the day and say, hey, am I going to use the bike? Then am I going to be around? Do I want the bike for myself that weekend?
Yeah.
And because, I only go on a ride, once a month maybe, and that's maybe being generous.
Yeah.
So for me right now, I've been doing 3 to 4 rentals a month for about 2 months or so. That seems to be what I'm averaging so far.
And for clarity, you're in the Portland market. It's in the latter half of the summer. In fact, we're in October at this point. Mm-hmm. You're still getting pre-qualified leads?
Yeah. It's actually been better than I've thought so far. And that's a good point, is, what you're getting is what's the demand piece for it. So yeah. I do think that location has to do a lot with it. If you're in a city, there's going to be, I think, more interest just because of the population density in general. But also, do you live in a place where your bike or where you live is a destination for bike riders? We were talking about this earlier, but the people that are on these apps looking to rent a bike fall into, I think, 2 or 3 distinct buckets. Most of the people that I've rented to so far are actually have been riding before, have owned a bike in the past. For whatever reason, they don't have one anymore, and their buddies or someone in their family, someone they know is going on a ride, and they just want to rent a bike for the day to join along with them. So if you're in a place where it's more popular to ride, California, for example, if you live, in the hills or the valley
With a
or
longer
off
season
Highway
for
101
riding,
with
right?
longer season, you're going to have more people interested.
Okay.
So being in the Northwest where we are, 3 to 4 hasn't been too bad for me.
You talk about 3 to 4 rides a month. I mean, you have to have the handoff, right? You have to go through the hey, let's meet at a certain time. Let's do, check your ID. Let me set you up on the app. Make sure that insurance is solid. Like, what's your time worth? I think it's the next step. So how do you feel like your time versus the benefit is like?
Yeah, it's a good question. So each time I do a rental, and on average too, the rentals I do are 1 to 3 days.
Okay.
I haven't gotten any week longers. I'd say maybe like 1.7 days is the average. And so before someone comes to rent out the bike, you have to go through the checklist of, right, is it topped off with fuel? Is it cleaned up? Is there anything that needs to be done? I'd say between that and actual time you spend meeting with the person, taking pictures of the bike, checking it in and out, you spend probably about an hour of your own time per rental. So that's the question you got to ask is, how do you value your time? I wouldn't want to do this every day. That's why the 3 to 4 times a month is great for me, because typically it's, in the daytime when I'm already home, so I have to travel or do anything, I typically keep the bike gassed up. But to break down the math of that a little bit, and if it's worth it, and it's kind of a personal question for everyone who's considering this, 3 to 4 times a month right now, on average, I'm making $50 per day in profit.
After everything.
That's the fees, whatever goes to insurance in the app. That's my take home. So right now I'm doing about $200 a month during, in season still. We're still in season. But if you average that out over the year, I'd expect probably 2 trips a month over the course of the year, if I don't get any more aggressive with it, right? Because not a lot of people are going to be renting in January, I assume.
It is the Northwest, yes.
Yep. So we're looking at, rough ballpark, I'll probably bring in $1,200 to $1,500 in take home my first year of doing this. Now, if you think about the cost of the bike, the Z400 was $5,000, right? And so
after everything,
you after everything,
upgrades, taxes, everything, $5,000. Yeah, it's about right.
Right. So that's over a 4-year period. Then I will have basically paid for the bike with the rental income from rideshare and Twisted Road. However, here's the catch. There is wear and tear to consider on the bike, right? People have put miles on it. What I've found so far over the trips that I've done is, on average, 100 miles is being put on the bike per trip. So 25 trips over the course of those, 25 trips a year rather, right? Is that right? Yeah, over the course of those 4 years. So 2,500 miles per year is just rental miles. Over a 4-year period where the rental income has paid for that bike, that's also 10,000 rental miles that have been put on the bike. Arguably, a third at minimum or most life of the bike.
And rough miles? Can I say rough miles put onto the bike? I mean, if it's not your bike, and honestly, you were telling me earlier, a lot of newer riders have been using this app. So people that aren't used to a lever clutch or anything like that. So do you feel like it's a higher risk for you then?
Yeah, and that's something to consider too. And it's you get to be selective, which is nice. When a request comes in, you typically get to see the person. Are they 20 years old, or are they 65 and retired and clearly just looking to cruise around for the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Generally for me, it's been the more experienced rider, and I think because they're actually pretty smart and economical about how they ride bikes. We'll talk about that in another video about the other side of that, renting motorcycles from these apps. But I have had 1 or 2 situations where, I've dropped the bike off, and as I'm walking away, the person I've just rented to is looks like they're in motorcycle training school, right? They're learning how to feel that clutch out. And of course, the whole time they're gone, I'm just thinking about them burning through that clutch or, grinding
or
gear,
worse.
shifting potentially.
Yes.
So it is something to consider. And I don't know actually what the long-term wear and tear is going to look like. My hope is that the majority of my riders, being that casual, experienced rider, they're not going to put too much more wear and tear on than I would.
Or that you sell it before it becomes an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is maintenance to consider too. Over those 10,000 miles, I'll have the cost of, several oil changes. 10,000 miles is about a set of tires, right?
Okay.
So, but still, I'll probably break even in 4 or 5 years if I continue how I'm going now. And if you want to look at it that way, you can say, if you don't mind the experience of meeting with people, of taking the time to do the actual administration of it, then everything else over those 4 or 5 years and then plus should be either profit to me or at least paying for the expenses of me having the bike. We had really good financing when we bought these bikes, so we decided to finance them rather than just do cash. So for me, payment on the bike payment plus insurance, everything all in is about $136 a month. And so, these 3 to 4 trips, even 2 trips, is paying for all the costs that I directly have of the bike on a month-to-month basis.
Well, I think that kind of covers like the economics of it. It sounds like it works out really well, especially if you're making $50 a trip, 3 trips a month. I mean, I know you got an off season, but
no one's crashed my bike yet.
And you get to ride in the off times. So
yeah,
that works out great. I guess the final question is, do you ever feel uncomfortable? Now, you're not like a high risk person. Like you are probably someone that can meet anybody and not feel uncomfortable. But do you think there's a risk of a safety issue meeting someone to give your bike away?
I don't think so. If anything, it's, I think, more secure than meeting someone on Craigslist or OffRep or something, right? That they have
a user profile on this website. They've been background checked with driver's license and everything else.
Yeah, they have to be verified that they have like a valid motorcycle endorsement, right? So
okay. So there's some checks behind it all to make sure that everyone's safe and they're coming in here. And that kind of provides that extra layer of security when you're meeting somebody. It's not like someone off the road or whatever. You're like, they've been checked.
Yeah, and the both of the RiderShare and Twisted Road, when you do the checkout process, it's pretty thorough. So when you do meet with someone, the app, in order for you to check out and start the session, requires you to take a picture of their license in front of your odometer.
Okay.
Requires you to take pictures of at least 4 different angles of the bike. Yep. The person you're renting to also has to submit those same pictures. Those are time stamped, and so there is a secure reference point of for damages and such like that. The apps also do include insurance, and riders can actually, or renters can purchase additional insurance on top of the one that's already provided with the service. So I haven't gone through an accident, so I can't say from personal experience how this works out, but supposedly in most cases everything should be covered, and worst case scenario, there might be a deductible of some sort for $500, whatever it is. But if you're like me and you also have motorcycle insurance on top of that, that can be used to apply to any expenses that the service insurance doesn't cover.
Oh, well, that's fantastic.
All theoretical.
So I think in summary, what we've decided is, this is a great opportunity if you have a bike that you are not using all the time. You just want to have someone to supplement the payment. And you're like, hey, I don't ride it every day, so this works out for me. Mm-hmm. It's a great opportunity for you to find a solution that makes both parties happy. Is that fair?
That's fair. I do want to add one thing, though, and that is who I think this is better for, or what type of bike this is better for. Okay. So Z400 is a great all-around bike, right? People that are tall, short, inexperienced, experienced can have fun on it, right? And it's kind of does everything all around. You can do little tours, you can go, around the curves.
And it's cheap.
But who I see, and I've talked to a few people too that are making really good money on these apps, is if you have a really unique bike that people want to ride, right? If you've got that, unique Ducati Monster, if you've got, the fully loaded adventure bikes seem to do really well, the BMW GS series, things like that. If you have a non-everyday bike, something that even someone that owns a bike wants to rent just because they think it's interesting or an experience that they want, but they don't want to purchase that bike, whatever it is, those folks not only get more rentals because there's higher demand, but they also get to charge a premium.
Oh, okay.
I've seen a lot of these unique leader bikes or adventure bikes or really premium or custom bikes are going for $150 to sometimes $200 a day. So if you're that person, and you're doing 3 or 4 of these rentals a month, the economics shift in a different way, right? Or you could make the same income that I do doing 3 to 4 rentals a month, doing 1 or even less than 1 rental a month. So there is that to consider. But overall, yeah, I think I'd recommend it. I would just, if you're someone who values your time a lot and you're not a people person, you don't want to go through the hassle of meeting with someone or really doing the administration, then it may not be your cup of tea. But, I've had a good time so far.